you want to dunk like that, this is just going to be a self-lob tutorial to show you guys how to perform a self-lob technique better. How to get your first dunk off a self-lob. So what we're going to go over is the rhythm of your approach, the timing of your approach, where you want to bounce the ball, where you want to catch the ball, and how high you want to throw the ball. If you're on the verge of getting your first dunk, then I would highly suggest practicing the self-lob. You could get someone to throw you a lob, then you're going to need that perfect lob, and a lot of guys don't know what that is. So I'm going to show you how to do this on your own. So in this tutorial, we're going to be using an 8-foot rim. So let's talk about the timing of your approach first. When you're throwing the ball in the air, you want to have enough time to gather all of your steps. This is what I want you guys to look like. I want you guys to make sure you're getting your full approach in and you're timing it properly so that you're catching the ball at its peak. I'm going to talk about where to catch the ball in a second, but you want to make sure you're getting a full approach in, 4 steps or 5 steps. And also, you don't want to start running too early or starting too late. This is an example of starting your approach too early. And I was going to catch it here pretty much. And I wasn't able to get my full arm swing. If I were to start my approach too late, the ball is coming downwards towards me, and that's gonna be hard to handle the ball. So you wanna make sure you're at the sweet spot, you're catching the ball when it's at its peak. In terms of where you wanna catch the ball, like I said prior, you wanna catch it at the peak of the bounce. What does that mean? So when you bounce the ball, there's a peak height that the ball bounces to. I wanna freeze the frame of that. That's the peak. When it reaches that peak, the ball pauses in the air for just a moment. That makes it a lot easier to grab the ball. If you were to grab it on your way up, it would kind of kill your rhythm because you were not able to get a full arm swing in. If you were to catch it too late, the ball is traveling down. And what I noticed is that a lot of people fumble the ball once they catch it up, and it also kills their momentum. You know, the ball's traveling the opposite direction of you. So if anything, you might lose a couple of inches in your vertical if that happens. You want to catch it at the peak, just like this. Also, when you are catching at the peak, you're able to get a full arm swing in, grab it at the top, and utilize all of your momentum from that arm swing. Let me show you an example of catching it too early. Oh, fuck. Yeah, that was really early. Like if you were to catch it too early, and I would have to catch it at about waist level, chest level, and I'm not able to get that full arm swing extension. As opposed to catching at the peak, I would catch it here. If you're to catch it too early, you might catch it here, right here, and that's extra inches you're losing. Also, what I noticed, it's harder to catch the ball while it's moving. If you're gonna catch it on its way down, this is what it's gonna look like. So that kind of messed up my rhythm. And if I'm going full speed, obviously it's gonna look a lot worse. So here are a few clips of me catching the ball late on lobs. Fumbling all of them. None of them are close at all. So this definitely ties in with the timing aspect. You want to make sure you're starting your approach at a good timing so that you're catching the ball when it's at its peak instead of when it's going down or going up. This is for your first lob, by the way. For a windmill, you might want to go downwards a little bit. If it's going downwards and you're going into a windmill, that kind of helps you get into that winding up motion a lot better. Same thing with an East Bay. You want it to go downwards through the legs. So if it's going downwards with you, it makes it a lot easier to do that East Bay. But I'm talking mainly on the first dunk right now. You want to catch it at its peak. In terms of the rhythm of your approach, a lot of guys are hyper fixated on the lob. They stutter their steps and they're basically choppy throughout the whole approach. Just like a regular technique, you want to make sure that you're gradually building up speed and making sure your strides are all smooth and rhythmic. Every time you have a choppy step, that's killing your momentum. If you have nice strides and gradually building up speed throughout, then you're able to jump higher once you're able to transfer all that horizontal momentum to vertical momentum during that penultimate and block step. So a smooth approach like this. Okay? In terms of where you want to have the ball bounce, if we're talking about your first dunk, you want it to land just in front of the rim, right over here in front of the rim, so that you're able to grab it in front of the rim and punch it down. For example, if you had to throw it too close to the rim, I ended up underneath the rim, so I wasn't able to get a dunk in pretty much. If you throw it too far from the rim, like this, unless I'm LeBron, I'm not dunking this. You want to have that perfect sweet spot that if you're just getting barely above the rim, then you want it to land in front of the rim right here. How high do you want the ball to bounce? Again, if we're talking about your first dunk, then you want to have the peak of the bounce be just above the rim. So I'm going to freeze the frame right there. The peak of the ball is just above the rim so that you're able to just push it down into the rim. So to get the ball to that height, you either have to pump up your ball a lot or have the arch of your lob be super high. This is a pretty pumped ball. It doesn't take a lot to bounce it high. So this is what it's going to look like. The ball is barely above the rim when I'm catching it, and I'm catching it at the peak of the bounce as well. If you're talking about trick dunks, that's totally different, right? Because if I wanted to do a windmill, I would want it to bounce this high. Grab it here and then swing it down. If I were to grab it high for a windmill, right here, that's extra distance that the windmill has to travel over, and you need a lot of air time for that, right? So if you're just trying to get your first windmill or something, lower is better. For an East Bay, again, lower is better. Right here, about waist height. Right? If you're gonna throw it high, the ball has to travel all this extra distance to do that East Bay, and that's gonna be even harder. And you gotta jump higher for that. This is what it's gonna look like for a windmill. This is what it's gonna look like for an East Bay. Whoa! Whoa! Fuck! Okay, I'm not doing that anymore, but you get the gist. Oh, this is gonna be how you wanna catch the lob, right? So for a basic dunk, you could either catch it with one and put it down with one. You could catch it with two and put it down with one, or you could catch it with two and bring it down with two. So this is gonna be catching it with one and bringing it down with one. This is gonna be grabbing it with two and bringing it down with one. And this is gonna be grabbing it with two and bringing it down with two. If you're gonna catch it with one, then I would suggest you bounce the ball above the rim so that you're able to just reach as high as you can with one and put it down with one. If it was a little lower and you were to catch it with one, then you'd have to kind of wind up and then extend. And what I noticed from that is that I typically lose the ball when I extend, because it'll be like this, boom, I'll show you. So that's what it would look like for me. If I'm gonna grab it with one, I want it to be super high so that I'm stretching as high as I can to put it down. If you're catching with two, then I would suggest having the ball bounce a little bit lower, maybe just right here, maybe half the ball is above the rim. I'm able to catch it with two and then push the ball up with one and then extend. If I were to have the ball bounce high, it would be super hard to catch with two and then bring it down with one, unless you're jumping super high. Also, if you're gonna catch it with two, this is what you wanna do. You're gonna be catching it like this, right? Where your offhand is on the bottom and then your dominant hand is on the top. So for me, I'm right-handed. My left hand is on the bottom. If you're left-handed, your right hand's on the bottom. So just like so, offhand on the bottom, and you're using the offhand to push it up into your hand, and with the dominant hand, you're cuffing the ball, right? So you're gonna be making this motion with your wrist. If it was straight, then you just lose the ball. Offhand, push it up, and also be in this little position. So just like this. So if you're trying to get your first two-handed dunk, this is gonna be a lot different. You wanna catch the ball on your fingertips rather than on your palms. If you're gonna catch it like this, where your palms are on the ball, you need both of your wrists to get above the rim. And that's gonna be super hard, especially for your first two-handed dunk. If you're gonna catch it on your fingertips, right? This is what it's gonna look like. You have that extra space to work with. You only need probably half of your hands to be above the rim to get this two-handed dunk. So that's pretty much all I want to go over with the self-lob technique. So I went over the rhythm of your approach, the timing of your approach, where you want to have the ball bounce, where you want to catch the ball, and how you want to catch the ball. So that was 5 things I want to go over with you. If you're on the verge of getting your first dunk, then this is definitely something I would prioritize, especially on a low rim if you have one. If you could dunk off the dribble, but not off a lob, I'm going to tell you right now that you're definitely capable of dunking off a lob because you need a higher vertical to actually dunk off a dribble. A lot of guys like to do it off the dribble because the timing of the lob is super hard. It took me a while to get used to, but I got used to it dunking on a low rim as much as I can, right? So if you're trying to get better at dunking, if you want to get into trick dunks, it's a lot easier to have the ball off a lob so that you're able to utilize your full arm swing. If you don't have access to a low rim, then the best thing you can do is practice on regulation, or what you can do is just do it in an open space, doing the timing on your driveway. So let's say I didn't have a rim over here, I would just bounce it and practice catching it. Practice with the heights and start practicing catching the ball at its peak, practicing the rhythm, practicing the timing, and getting your reps in. The best way you could get better at this is through reps. So you just gotta rep the hell out of this. But it's a quick video, quick tutorial. Let me know if you guys like this video and I'll make more of it. But yeah, all right, later.